I don't think I ever really fit in with my family. Not in a dramatic, black sheep, storm out of Thanksgiving dinner kind of way, but in that quieter, more painful sense, like I was just slightly off frequency from everyone else, always a few degrees removed from whatever bond seemed to glue them all together. My name's Tate. I'm 33 now, and for most of my adult life, I've kept my distance. Not out of anger, out of self-preservation. I grew up in a household where loyalty wasn't about love, it was about leverage. My sister, Callie, 2 years older than me and a professional guilt tripper in heels, learned young how to weaponize that. My parents, ever hopeful that she'd mature out of it, rarely intervened. And me? I was the quiet one. The kid with a savings jar while Callie ran tabs. The one who asked questions, who watched patterns. I think they assumed I was just a little slow. That worked in my favor, honestly. Especially later on. When I turned 24, I landed a decent job in tech. Not flashy, not one of those I built an app and sold it to Google stories, but good. Steady. I saved aggressively, lived modestly, and invested in some rental properties. By the time I was 29, I'd paid off my first duplex, bought a third property, and quietly started building something solid. And I never once flaunted it. Not online, not in family group chats, not during holidays. I had this rule: never give them a reason to look at me like I owed them. Not that it mattered. Because the truth is, Callie always acted like I did. It started small, the way these things always do. I was 25 when she called me crying about her car getting towed. I sent her $200 without a second thought. "You're a lifesaver, Tate," she said. "I'll pay you back on Friday." She didn't. I didn't remind her. 6 months later, it was a short-term loan to help with her phone bill. Then an emergency $600 for rent. At first, I believed her. Then I started recognizing the patterns. Friday never came. Neither did payback. And every time I tried to bring it up, she'd go quiet, cold, then explode with, "You're so obsessed with money. It's creepy." Or worse, "You're my brother. You think this is what family does." That line stuck with me. You think this is what family does. When our parents downsized and sold the house, I offered to help with moving expenses. Nothing huge, just a truck rental and gas. My parents thanked me, barely. Callie, though, scoffed and said, "Wow, look at Mr. Responsible swooping in to save the day." I remember standing there, box in my arms, wondering how I'd become the villain in a story I didn't even realize I was in. But I swallowed it. I always did. I thought being helpful would make the tension go away. It didn't. It just made me the default option whenever something needed solving. By the time I hit 31, things had shifted. I'd started a small business, again, nothing flashy. A modest property management firm handling rentals, including my own. I hired a team, learned fast, and did the legwork myself. No loans from anyone. No handouts. And still, my family acted like I'd lucked into it. Callie once told her husband, Connor, during a family dinner, "Tate just fell into money. He doesn't understand real struggle." Connor laughed like he always did, with that dismissive smirk he wore like cologne. "Must be nice having a safety net for a personality," he said. That was his thing, making little comments like that. Like I was a walking ATM who didn't deserve the PIN code. But I didn't respond. I just chewed my food and counted down the minutes until I could leave. What I didn't know then, what I would only realize much later, was that Connor and Callie had started building a fantasy around me. In their heads, I wasn't their relative. I was their solution, their plan B, their untapped savings account. And they were just waiting for the right moment to cash in. The wedding was the perfect setup. Not mine, of course. It was Callie's best friend getting married at this vineyard just outside town. Expensive, upscale, exactly the kind of place Callie liked to be seen at, even if she wasn't the one footing the bill. Somehow, I ended up invited. Barely. I suspect they needed me there for optics. Connor's family was attending, and it helped to have the successful brother in the background. Like showing off a nice watch you never actually use. The day of the wedding, I arrived on time, dressed appropriately, gift in hand. I wasn't in the wedding party, didn't expect to be. I figured I'd show up, smile, clap, eat some overpriced salmon, and head home. But from the moment I walked into that reception hall, something felt off. Callie gave me a look, tight-lipped, eyes narrowed, like she was calculating something. Connor gave me a nod, that smug bro gesture like we were in on something together. I wasn't. I kept to myself, tried to enjoy the music, the open bar, the brief conversation with a cousin I hadn't seen in years. Then came the whisper. I was near the dance floor, about to head back to my table, when Callie suddenly appeared beside me. She grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm enough to make me stop. Her nails dug slightly into my jacket. She leaned in close, and through her gritted teeth, hissed, "You owe us. Don't you dare walk away." I blinked, caught completely off guard. "Excuse me." Before I could pull my arm back, Connor stepped in behind her, drink in hand, grinning like he'd just told the world's funniest joke. "Yeah, wallet boy," he chuckled. "Do your job." I stared at him, at both of them, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel confusion. I didn't feel guilt. I felt cold, because that was the moment I realized they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource, a walking bank account with no interest and no say. I didn't say anything. I didn't argue or ask what they meant. I simply pulled my arm away, walked calmly out of the building, got in my car, and drove home. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. When I got home, I unlocked the safe I kept in the back of my office closet, the one no one in my family even knew existed. Inside were documents I'd collected over the past few years. Paper trails, copies, transfers, permissions, quiet signatures on things they thought I'd forgotten about. Things they'd waved off with "Tate will take care of it." And I had. Oh, I had. I sat there for hours, flipping through them, one by one. Every lease, every co-signed document, every little favor I'd done that came with a paper trail they hadn't bothered to read. They thought I'd never touch it, never think to look. They were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk with a glass of water that went untouched and a stack of documents that felt heavier than they should have. For hours, I just stared at them, trying to understand how many things I'd signed, how many quiet yes I'd handed over without question. Each paper was a breadcrumb. Together, they formed a map of how I'd been used, slowly, skillfully, and without apology. There was the lease I'd co-signed for Callie and Connor's first apartment 5 years ago, back when they just needed a few months of help until Connor's promotion came through. That promotion never came, and the lease? Renewed 3 times, each without my name removed. They hadn't paid the last 3 months of rent before moving out. And guess who got the calls from the landlord? I'd paid it to protect my credit, told myself it wasn't worth the fight, and let it go. That was the first document I placed in the "they owe me" pile. Then came the car. Callie's secondhand SUV that only needed a co-signer for insurance. She'd put me on the title, without telling me, after asking me to help with paperwork while I was visiting one weekend. I hadn't realized what I was signing at the time. I should have read it more carefully. A year later, I got a notice about a traffic ticket she hadn't paid and a warning that the vehicle had been involved in a minor accident. I paid the fine. The accident didn't go on her insurance. It went on mine. Then there were the little things. Forgotten favors that added up to thousands. A dentist bill. A flight she said she'd reimburse. The security deposit for their second apartment, which they never moved into and never got refunded. Connor's business idea that I'd thrown $3,000 into just to shut him up after he cornered me at a holiday dinner with a printed-out pitch deck and an audience. But it was more than the money. It was the entitlement. They never asked nicely. It was always assumed. And if I hesitated, Callie would twist her voice into that self-pitying whine that drove me up a wall. "Wow, Tate, must be nice to be so cold. You really forgot where you came from, huh?" And Connor? He'd just laugh. "What's a few bucks to a landlord king like you?" That night at the wedding had been the first time they said the quiet part out loud. "Do your job." Like I was a servant who'd missed a shift. I didn't talk to anyone for a week after that. I screened calls, left family group chats on mute, and kept my head down at work. But I was simmering. Not angry, focused, cold, determined. I had spent my whole life giving them grace, trying not to be the problem. But something had shifted now. There's a certain peace that comes when you finally admit to yourself that someone doesn't love you the way you need them to, doesn't even respect you. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. The betrayal came on a Tuesday. It started with a phone call from my bank. I was in the middle of reviewing a property inspection report when my phone buzzed. I let it go to voicemail, then checked the transcript. My stomach dropped. It said, "Hi, Mr. Rowe. This is Jenna from First Oak Credit Union. We wanted to confirm a request to add an additional user to your business account and authorize a transfer limit increase. Please give us a call back to verify." I froze. My business account? I immediately called them back. 30 minutes later, after answering verification questions and reviewing recent access logs, I had a name. Callie. I nearly dropped the phone. Somehow, she had gotten enough of my business info, account number, EIN, address, to pose as me and request access on behalf of her husband, claiming it was a shared family business. She hadn't succeeded, but the attempt had been flagged because of conflicting information. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I logged into my business admin panel, checked permissions. Nothing there. Then I checked my email security logs. 2 failed login attempts from a device I didn't recognize. One tied to an IP address in the same town Callie lived. It was deliberate. That same night, I got a text from our mother. Just a photo. It was Callie and Connor standing in front of a sold sign, smiling like lottery winners. The caption read, "So proud of your sister's new home. She told us she and Connor saved up for years. Maybe one day you'll stop being so paranoid and take a risk too." Winky face. I stared at the image for a full minute before the nausea hit. There was no way they'd saved up. They were constantly behind on bills. Every family dinner ended with Callie subtly suggesting I help out more since I'm doing so well. The worst part? That house. I'd seen it before. It was a listing I'd recently put in an offer on. A foreclosure property through one of my connections. A great investment. But my offer had been rejected. Another buyer with better terms, the agent had said. I hadn't thought twice. Until now. I checked the public records. The deed had been filed under Connor's name and mine. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it sounded like static in my ears. What they'd done was clever. Technically, I had signed a POA form once, years ago, to help them submit a loan application when they were dealing with medical bills. I'd insisted it be temporary, but it had never been revoked. And they'd used it to file purchase documents in my name, used it to boost their loan qualifications, used it to secure a home, and I had just become legally tied to it. They hadn't even told me. They didn't think they had to. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked. Like ice under weight. Silent at first. Then irreversible. I didn't reply to the text. I didn't call them. I didn't scream, or threaten, or rage. I sat back in my chair, staring at that photo, Connor's arm slung around Callie like he'd just won the jackpot, her smirk directed right at the camera. Or maybe at me. They thought I'd never notice. They thought I'd let it go. Again. I closed my laptop slowly, walked to the bedroom, opened the safe again, and this time I brought everything out. Every folder. Every signed permission. Every invoice and email backup I'd archived over the last 7 years. I spread it all out on my dining room table, turned on every light in the room, and started building a timeline. And as I worked, something strange happened. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel sad. I felt calm. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix things. I was preparing for war. The final straw came a few days later when my father called. His voice was light, rehearsed. Too cheerful. "Hey, buddy," he said. "So proud of Callie, huh? New house and everything. You know, she told me how much you helped them out. That's what family's about. We're planning a little celebration dinner. You should come." I didn't answer. He continued. "Also, I wanted to ask. Your mother mentioned you've got that lake property, the one you bought last year? She was saying it's just sitting there. Your sister was thinking it'd be the perfect place for her birthday this year. We'd make it a family event, of course. You'd still be welcome." I closed my eyes. There it was again. They weren't asking for permission. They were just assuming it was already theirs. That I was just the holder of keys to a kingdom they already thought belonged to them. I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't go to the dinner. Instead, I finished organizing my files. Cross-referenced property deeds. Contacted a lawyer I trusted. Checked expiration dates on the POA. Built a digital folder with everything I needed. And when I was done, I printed a single page. One single document they never expected I'd even remember. And as I slid that page into a fresh folder and clicked the lid of the safe shut, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. And the next time they saw me, I wouldn't be the wallet. They didn't even notice when I disappeared. After the house stunt, the wedding confrontation, and my dad's smug little phone call, I went completely silent. Not a word in the family group chat. Not a reaction to the barrage of photos they posted showing off Callie's new dream home, with captions like, "Hard work pays off," and "blessed beyond words." My name, technically still on the deed, never got so much as a mention. Connor even posted a selfie from the porch, beer in hand, with the caption, "Built different." The irony wasn't lost on me. They hadn't built anything. But the rest of the family played along, liking, commenting, gassing them up like they were role models. I watched it all from a distance, and each time my finger hovered over the Leave Group button, something held me back. I wanted to see how far they'd go, and they went far. 2 weeks after the celebration dinner I refused to attend, my mom texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, just checking in. Callie said she couldn't find the keys to the lake house. Any chance you could leave a copy with the neighbor? She promised to clean up after the party. Hope you're doing well." Smiley face. Party. Not hypothetical. Not proposed. Not requested. Planned. Like everything else, it was already decided. The only variable left was whether I'd play along. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the message. Instead, I turned off my phone and drove 3 hours to the lake house without telling a soul. It was early spring, cold enough that the lake still looked like cracked glass under the overcast sky. I spent the first day just walking the perimeter, checking locks, inspecting the property. I hadn't visited in almost a year, not because I didn't want to, but because every time I did, someone in the family would find out and suddenly remember a favor they needed. This time, I didn't tell anyone. And for the first time, it felt like mine. It wasn't a mansion, just a cozy, 2-bedroom place with wide windows and a wraparound porch that faced the water. I'd bought it after a tough year, with the intention of fixing it up slowly. A place to breathe. A place to think. But life had gotten busy, and I never made time for it. Now, it became my refuge. I brought a folding table and stacked my documents, laptop, and files across it like a war map. I spent my mornings working on my business remotely, keeping things afloat, staying low profile, and my afternoons poring over legal documents, timelines, past favors. I cataloged everything. Labeled. Tabbed. Highlighted. I became obsessed with the details, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Because the more I dug, the more I found. There were tax implications tied to that house Callie and Connor had bought using my name. They hadn't filed things properly, and if left unchecked, the liability could fall on me. There was a small business loan Connor had applied for using our shared last name and a forged email signature, claiming family business affiliation to leverage one of my LLCs for credibility. It was paper thin, but dangerous enough. It was like cleaning a moldy basement. Every layer I peeled back revealed another rotten piece of foundation they'd built with my name. And somewhere in all of that mess, I hit bottom. Not dramatically, not in a movie montage kind of way, but quietly. One night, sitting alone in the lake house, surrounded by folders, my takeout dinner cold, I realized I didn't feel anything anymore. Not anger, not grief, just hollow. Because all of this, it had taken something from me. Not just time or money, but trust. Family. The kind of quiet comfort you're supposed to have with the people who raised you. The ones who are supposed to have your back. I didn't have that. I never really did. That night, I stood on the porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, looking out at the water. The moon was bright enough to reflect off the ripples, and I could see my breath. I let myself feel it, really feel it, for the first time in months. That deep, chest-tightening disappointment. Not at them, at myself, for always believing they'd be different. That was my fault, but it was also where the rise began. I woke up the next morning with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. No grand epiphany, just focus. I made a list, not for revenge, for reclaiming, rebuilding. I wasn't going to burn everything down. I was going to take back what was mine and protect what they hadn't stolen yet. First step, legal armor. I hired a second lawyer, one who specialized in fraud, title disputes, and family estate issues. We met over Zoom. I shared my files. She didn't flinch at the volume, just nodded, took notes, and said, "We can work with this." She became my firewall. Next, I started restructuring my businesses, quietly removing Connor's name from any possible affiliations, locking down permissions, updating passwords, transferring assets out of older LLCs into fresh entities with no digital trail they could trace. Then came the POA. Turns out it had technically expired, but it had never been formally revoked. My lawyer filed a notice of revocation and sent official letters to every institution they might have touched. That single document became the blade I used to sever the legal tether they thought would bind me forever. I didn't stop there. I went through my finances like a forensic accountant. every co-signed loan, every old utility bill, every favor I'd done just to be nice. I made a spreadsheet, logged the dates, cross-checked amounts. The total? $58,421.17. That's what I'd given them over the last 8 years. Some of it I knew about. Most I'd forgotten. And I didn't want it back. Not really. I just wanted the record. Because if this ever escalated further, and something told me it would, I'd need more than memory. I'd need receipts. But rebuilding wasn't just about paperwork. I started working out again. Nothing fancy. Just long walks around the lake, some bodyweight exercises in the morning, occasional trail runs. I stopped eating like I lived in an airport and started cooking real meals. I even painted the guest bedroom, something I'd meant to do for a year, and set up a real bed, not just an air mattress. It felt good to build something tangible again, something no one else could take. And slowly, I began to feel lighter. Not happy, not yet, but free. Then, one afternoon, maybe a month after I'd vanished, I got a knock at the lake house door. It was my cousin Heather. She looked sheepish, holding a plastic container of lasagna and a tote bag. "I figured you were here," she said. Nobody else knew. I told them I was visiting a friend. I let her in. Heather and I had always been close, or as close as you could be in a family like ours. She was the only one who never asked for anything, just listened. She sat at the kitchen table, took in the folders, the notes, the whole setup. "So," she said softly, "they went too far this time." I nodded. "Way too far." She stayed for dinner. We didn't talk much about Callie or Connor, just shared stories, laughed about old memories, made fun of how I still didn't own a microwave. And before she left, she pulled a folded piece of paper from her tote. "I found this," she said, "at Grandma's place. It's a letter. From your mom. About the lake house. Thought you should have it." After she left, I opened it. It was handwritten. Sloppy, but unmistakably my mother's voice. It read, "I still think it's selfish that Tate bought that place without telling anyone. It should have been a family cabin. Callie agrees. We'll find a way to make sure it stays in the family, whether he likes it or not." I sat down slowly. Because that was it. That was the core. This wasn't just about entitlement. It was about ownership. They believed I didn't deserve to have anything they couldn't access. That any success I earned was on borrowed time and borrowed loyalty. I wasn't their son. I was their resource. And the worst part? They didn't think I'd ever do anything about it. But they were wrong. The funny thing about rebuilding is how invisible it looks to everyone else. While Callie and Connor posted photos of backyard barbecues and adulting wins from the porch of the house they hijacked, I kept working in silence. They thought I had folded, that my silence meant surrender. But it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. I wasn't absent. I was preparing. By late spring, I'd rebuilt my entire legal and financial infrastructure. Every asset restructured under fresh LLCs, POAs revoked, access revoked, passwords regenerated, bank accounts closed and reopened. I even transferred ownership of the lake house to a new holding company with a trust and shell name, something bland and forgettable that wouldn't show up on a Google search. On paper, it looked like I didn't own a thing, and that was exactly how I wanted it. Callie's house, the one she bought using me like a stepping stone, still had my name buried deep in the deed records. And that was the key. I wasn't going to take it back. I was going to let them fall through it. But I had to wait for the perfect moment. Not just to make it hurt, but to make it undeniable. I needed leverage. I needed timing. And as if the universe had been paying attention this whole time, it handed me the opportunity in early June. It came in the form of an email. My business email, not personal. The subject line was, "Inquiry, Partnership Opportunity." Harmless enough. But the sender caught my attention. Connor Rowe. My stomach dropped. I opened it. It was written in the smarmiest tone imaginable. Pasted below was a proposal for a new business idea, something about short-term luxury rentals, targeting young professionals in transitional housing markets. He wanted to meet, claimed it would be mutually beneficial, insisted he had strong leads and just needed a little initial backing. The pitch deck was attached. It had my name in the footer, not as a co-founder, as a partner who'd agreed in principle to fund the launch. I hadn't spoken to him in over 3 months. My first reaction was disbelief. Then it turned into a quiet, simmering rage. But that rage quickly gave way to something better. Clarity. Because now I understood what this was. Connor didn't just want money. He wanted legitimacy. He wanted to piggyback off my reputation, use my business history, show off my involvement like a trophy to other potential investors. And if I refused, he'd paint me as flaky, unsupportive, selfish. It was classic Connor. I didn't reply. I printed the email, attached it to my growing file of receipts, and took a walk around the lake to clear my head. That night, I made 3 important phone calls. First was to my lawyer. Second was to a local real estate attorney who specialized in title disputes. And the third was to someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly 5 years, my old college friend Luca, who happened to now run a boutique marketing and media company that specialized in public image rehabilitation and destruction. "You have no idea how excited I am to finally owe you a favor," Lucas said, laughing into the phone. By the next day, we had a plan. It wasn't fast, or dramatic, or flashy, but it was precise. Step 1. Tighten the legal noose. We filed a formal notice of interest against the property Callie and Connor had bought, using my name. This flagged the title with the county, putting a hold on any refinance, sale, or ownership transfer until the matter was resolved. It also made their lender very nervous, which, of course, triggered a lovely little clause in their mortgage agreement. They were required to notify the bank of any dispute in title or ownership within 10 business days, or risk triggering a technical default. I didn't send the notice to them directly. That would have ruined the fun. I let the county clerk handle it. Step 2. Bait the trap. Luca's team helped me create a clean, professional-looking reply to Connor's partnership email. Not from me, but from an alias. An investor interested in funding Connor's business, asking for a meeting and requesting more documentation, references, and bank statements. We knew Connor wouldn't be able to resist showing off. He replied in less than a day, attaching more PDFs, spreadsheets, and even a braggy little one-pager about his new house, secured via family trust and internal financing from longtime partners. He meant me. We now had documentation, from his own hands, falsely claiming my business involvement, my trust, and financial connection. Luca's legal consultant drafted a cease and desist. Not to send. Not yet. Just to have ready. Step 3. Gather the allies. This one took time. I started reaching out to people on the periphery, extended family, old friends, neighbors who'd been quiet observers of the chaos over the years. Not with the goal of trashing Callie and Connor. Just reconnecting, asking questions, listening. And what I found, Callie had been running her mouth for years, telling cousins I was helping bankroll her lifestyle, bragging that I gave her the house because I felt guilty, suggesting I had promised her access to the lake property as a family inheritance preview. She told one aunt I was emotionally unstable and had distanced myself from everyone because I couldn't handle Callie's success. Another cousin heard from Connor that I was secretly in love with someone who rejected me and was channeling the bitterness into being stingy. I wrote it all down. Every story, every contradiction, because when the truth finally came out, I wanted them to be stunned by how many people knew the game they'd been playing. Step 4. Seal the exits. With my lawyer, we prepared a formal demand for the revocation of any access, affiliation, or claims Callie or Connor had made under my name. We filed it with the IRS, the Secretary of State for our business registry, and flagged the misuse of my information through the identity theft recovery pathway. Just enough to build a paper trail in case they tried something bigger later. The lake house was now fully protected under the trust, with legal language explicitly barring family members from occupancy without written consent. And the front gate? Upgraded. Security system installed. Cameras online. Let them try. And then, like fate was handing me the final tool I needed, came the invitation. My parents were throwing a 4th of July party at Callie and Connor's house, the one I was still legally tied to. A full family reunion. Barbecue. Music. Fireworks. "Hope you'll come, honey," my mom wrote in her message, pretending we hadn't been on cold terms for months. "It'll mean the world to your sister. She's worked so hard." Worked. Right. I didn't respond. The 4th of July was unusually hot that year. The kind of heat that made your clothes cling to your back and your patience run thin. My inbox had been quiet for a few days. No more emails from Connor, no more passive-aggressive texts from my mother, not even the usual family chatter in the group chat. It was like they all collectively held their breath, waiting to see if I'd show up. I wasn't going to show up. I was going to take the stage. The morning of the party, I sat on the porch of the lake house, sipping black coffee and reviewing the final pieces of the plan. My legal team was ready. Luca's team had every file backed up, time-stamped, and archived. I had multiple notarized letters sitting in a folder on my passenger seat, along with an envelope addressed to the county records office. At 10:02 a.m., I received a call from the mortgage lender tied to Callie and Connor's house. "Mr. Rowe," the woman said politely, "we're following up on the notice of interest you filed regarding the property at 483 Sycamore Avenue. We've attempted to reach the co-owners listed on the title, but have not received a response. As per policy, their account has been flagged for potential title fraud and technical default. Given your legal counsel's documents, we are proceeding with caution." I thanked her, hung up, and started driving. No, I wasn't going to the party. I was going near it. About half a mile from their house was a quiet overlook, a small hill with a view of the neighborhood. I parked there and waited. Around noon, the party began. Music started thumping. Balloons swayed in the breeze. I could see cars pulling up, relatives pouring out in sundresses and polos, holding bottles of wine and bags of snacks. A few kids chased each other across the lawn. Someone fired up the grill. I waited until 1:30. Then I sent the emails. 3, in total. The first one to Callie and Connor. Subject line: "You really thought I'd stay quiet?" Inside was a detailed breakdown of every legal action taken: title hold, fraud notifications, POA revocation, cease and desist drafts, and an itemized list of everything they owed me over the years, complete with documentation. I attached the photos from their own proposal, their own words, their own lies. It ended with a single sentence: "You built this entire life on my name. Now watch it collapse under yours." The second email went to my parents, CCing every aunt, uncle, and cousin who'd ever commented on how supportive I should be. I didn't rant. I didn't accuse. I just attached the receipts and let the evidence speak for itself. Every favor, every check, every fraud-laced detail. The final paragraph read: "I spent a decade being quiet so no one would feel uncomfortable. I've decided I don't care if you're uncomfortable anymore." The third email went to Luca. All it said was, "Launch it." 30 minutes later, a curated blog post went live on a lifestyle and finance website Luca's firm had influence over. It was titled, "When Family Takes Everything," a cautionary tale about boundaries, business, and betrayal. It wasn't revenge porn. It was smart, clean, and ruthlessly factual. No names were used, but the details were unmistakable to anyone who knew us. It framed the story as a guide to financial independence and setting boundaries with toxic relatives. It included redacted images of deeds, business proposals, messages. It was written like a TED Talk, but it cut like a scalpel. Within an hour, it was trending on Reddit. People flooded the comments with stories of their own entitled siblings, their parasitic cousins, their ungrateful parents. The post was shared by a few financial influencers on X, formerly Twitter, and by sundown, it had over 800,000 views. And while the internet read the story of how my family tried to siphon the life out of me, I drove back to the lake house and made dinner. No fireworks, no drama, just peace, until the fallout began. At 7:52 p.m., my phone rang. I didn't pick up. At 8:10, another call, then another. Then the text messages started. "Callie, you absolute snake. What did you do? Connor, you're dead to us. You just ruined everything. MOM, we need to talk. Now, you've gone too far. This is family. Dad, I warned you not to embarrass us." I didn't reply. By 9:30 p.m., Heather called. I answered for her. "They're imploding," she said. "Your mom screamed at Uncle Ray in front of everyone. Callie's crying." Connor stormed off. Apparently the bank called them. Something about default and fraud risk. "What did you do?" "I took back my name," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "Good," she whispered. "Took you long enough." The next morning, the house of cards officially fell. The mortgage company froze Callie and Connor's account. Due to the title dispute and the POA fraud, their refinance offer, which they were banking on to finish their backyard renovation, was revoked. Their lawyer dropped them once my documentation came through. They tried to claim ignorance, but the emails and loan forms Connor had signed with my name said otherwise. Within 2 weeks, the lender filed notice of foreclosure proceedings, pending resolution of the title issue. They were given 30 days to prove clean title ownership or face default. They didn't have proof, because the entire thing was built on me. They tried to spin it to the family. Callie sent out a group message claiming I was destroying them out of jealousy. Connor told everyone I had hacked their documents and was spreading lies. But no one believed them anymore, because I had the receipts, and I wasn't the only one who'd been burned. Turns out Connor had borrowed money from one of our uncles with the promise that I'd match it as a co-investor. Callie had promised our grandmother that Tate said she could move into the lake house if her health got worse. They had made so many promises using my name, my goodwill, my silence, that when it finally cracked, the truth spilled everywhere. My parents tried to force a reconciliation. They invited me to a private dinner, told Heather to encourage me to attend. I didn't. Instead, I had my lawyer send them a formal boundary agreement, a legal document outlining financial separation, property access restrictions, and a cease and desist order against using my name in any financial dealings. My mother called it a betrayal. I called it a beginning. A few months later, the house was officially foreclosed. Callie and Connor tried to fight it, but couldn't come up with the funds. The final twist? Because my name was on the title and I had filed the original dispute, I had first right of purchase when the property hit auction. I didn't buy it. I let it go. Let them watch it get listed, bid on, and sold to a complete stranger. Let them pack up the porch furniture, the string lights, the fake success. Let them move back into a rental 2 towns over. I heard Connor took a job in retail. Callie started doing lifestyle coaching online. They still try to make themselves look important, but the shine is gone. No more borrowed glory. As for me, I stayed quiet, kept my businesses growing, spent more time at the lake house. I even started hosting small gatherings, friends, not family, people who saw me for me. The final message I ever sent to my family was short. Just one line. You thought I was the wallet, but I was the vault.